Hey there, and welcome back to the show. I'm Zoe, and today we are diving into a topic that is honestly keeping a lot of people in tech up at night. Is this the end of junior developers? Is AI really taking over software engineering to the point where there's no room left for beginners? And if you're just starting out or thinking about getting into coding, what does that actually mean for you? We are going to unpack all of that in this episode. Here is what we are covering. First, I will walk you through the latest data on what is actually happening to entry-level developer jobs. Spoiler alert, the numbers are pretty wild, and they are not all bad news. Then we will look at how AI coding tools are changing the day-to-day work of engineers and why senior developers are actually thriving while juniors are struggling. After that, I will explain the concept of cognitive debt, something that the industry is only now starting to talk about. And finally, I will give you a realistic picture of what skills actually matter right now if you want to break into software engineering in 2026. All right, let us jump in. You have probably seen the headlines. AI is coming for our jobs. But when you actually look at the data, the story is way more nuanced than that. Research from the Stanford Digital Economy Lab tracked payroll data from millions of US workers and found something striking. Employment for software developers aged 22 to 25 has fallen nearly 20% from its peak in late 2022. That is around the time ChatGPT launched and changed everything. But here is the thing that does not make the headlines. Developers aged 41 to 49 saw no meaningful change at all over the same period. Same industry, same tools, same AI rollout. One group got hit hard, the other barely noticed. So what is going on? Well, AI coding tools like GitHub, Copilot, Claude Code, and Cursor have gotten really good at exactly the kind of work that junior developers used to do, the boring stuff. The boilerplate code, the well-defined tickets, the small bug fixes, the test scaffolding, that is the bread and butter of an entry-level engineering job. And that is precisely what AI can handle now. Senior engineers, on the other hand, spend their time on the messy, ambiguous stuff. The architectural decisions, the judgment calls, the debugging that spans multiple services, the conversations with confused stakeholders. AI is not great at any of that, so senior developers are safer. Their value is in the stuff AI cannot easily replicate. And companies have noticed. A survey from earlier this year found that 1 in 5 companies have already stopped hiring entry-level workers because of AI. Another study covering more than 21,500 US companies found that firms investing heavily in AI actually grew their workforces by about 10% overall, and even increased entry-level hiring by 12%. So it is not a simple story of AI replacing everyone. Some companies are using AI to scale up, which creates more jobs, not fewer, but the net effect for young developers has been deeply negative overall. Now, a few big names have weighed in on this. Mark Russinovich, who is the CTO of Microsoft Azure, and Scott Hanselman, a VP at Microsoft, published a paper in Communications of the ACM where they argue that agentic AI tools are creating a structural crisis in the software engineering profession. Their core argument is that AI gives senior engineers a massive productivity boost while making it harder for junior developers to learn the skills they actually need. They call this the narrowing pyramid hypothesis. Traditionally, junior developers joined companies, worked on small, well-defined tasks, learned the code base, made mistakes, learned from those mistakes, and over time grew into senior engineers. But if AI takes over all those small entry-level tasks, where do juniors get their training? The bottom of the pyramid disappears. And this is where we get to the really interesting part, the cognitive debt problem. A study published this year looked at developers using AI coding assistants and found something fascinating. People who use AI to generate code without fully understanding it scored much lower on comprehension tests compared to developers who coded manually. But here's the twist. Developers who used AI to ask conceptual questions, like explain how this pattern works or why is this approach better, actually learned faster and retained more. The difference is not whether you use AI, it is how you use it. Using AI to replace understanding creates cognitive debt. You ship code that looks clean and passes tests, but you do not actually know why it works. And the day something breaks in production, you have no mental model to debug it. Using AI to accelerate understanding, on the other hand, makes you a better engineer faster. Anthropic published research showing that developers using AI coding assistants scored 17% lower on comprehension tests when learning new coding libraries compared to developers who coded manually. Productivity gains were not statistically significant in that study. That is a huge red flag. You can ship code faster in the short term, but if you do not understand what you are shipping, you are building on a shaky foundation. So what does this mean if you are a junior developer or thinking about becoming one? Is the door just closed now? No, it is not. But the door has changed. The old path of learn a bit of JavaScript, build a couple of basic projects, and land a job writing simple CRUD applications is basically gone. AI does that part now. The bar has moved up. Companies are looking for developers who can do the things AI cannot. That means system design fundamentals, testing methodology, debugging skills, and the ability to review and evaluate AI-generated code. The Stack Overflow developer survey this year found that 84% of developers use or plan to use AI tools. But 2/3 of them said their biggest frustration is dealing with code that is almost right, but not quite. And 45% said debugging AI-generated code takes more time than it saves. So the skill that matters most right now is not writing code. It is evaluating code, knowing when the AI is wrong, being able to look at generated output and spot the subtle bugs, the edge cases it missed, the architectural problems that will bite you 6 months from now. And the other thing that matters is specialization. The generalist junior developer who can write a bit of everything is competing directly with AI. But a junior who has spent 3 months deeply learning a specific domain, like healthcare API integration or cybersecurity tooling or machine learning pipeline maintenance, that person is way more valuable. Specialization creates differentiation in a world where AI has commoditized general-purpose coding. Some companies are also starting to rethink their approach to junior talent. A few large enterprise tech companies quietly increased their junior hiring in early 2026 because they realized something important. If you stop hiring juniors today, you will have no senior engineers in 5 years. You cannot skip a generation of developers and expect everything to be fine. Some organizations are treating junior roles as formal apprenticeships, pairing juniors with senior mentors for 6 to 12 months, requiring them to write code manually at first, and using AI tools as learning aids rather than code generators. These juniors take longer to become productive initially, but within 18 months, they outperform developers who were given AI tools on day one and left to figure it out on their own. Microsoft is piloting something they call a preceptor program inspired by medical education. The idea is that experienced engineers mentor junior developers in real product teams, with learning as an explicit organizational goal rather than just a side effect of shipping code. The senior engineer watches how the junior interacts with AI tools, what they accept and reject, where their understanding breaks down, and the senior's role shifts from being the person who answers questions to being the person who teaches judgment. So let me wrap this up with a realistic picture. The end of junior developers as we knew them? Yes, absolutely. The era where you could graduate from a coding bootcamp and land a job writing basic features all day is over. AI handles that tier of work now. But the need for junior developers who can grow into senior engineers has not gone away. It has just become more expensive and more intentional. Companies that stop hiring juniors are making a choice that will hurt them in 5 to 10 years. And the developers who succeed in this new landscape will be the ones who use AI as a teacher, not as a ghostwriter, who build deep understanding instead of surface-level output, who learn to evaluate code, not just generate it. If you are early in your career or thinking about getting into software engineering, here's the honest truth. The path is harder now, but it is not closed. Focus on fundamentals. Learn to debug. Learn to test. Learn to read code critically. Specialize in something that actually requires human judgment, and use AI to understand things faster, not to skip the understanding entirely. That is the winning strategy for 2026 and beyond. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe so you do not miss the next one. I will be back soon with more insights from the world of tech, AI, and software tools. Until then, take care.